Hi everybody, welcome back. We're moving on to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial teams. I'll start with the entrepreneurial teams because we sort of touched on those before. I mentioned Ruby Rubenstein, the person I used to work with in college, who went on to invent the iPad. But he wasn't done. I mean, or at least what he found was something that was a solid state device that could store lots of music that did generate heat to roast whatever it was sitting in. But the fact is you had to integrate that component with other components. Sorry, there's a little background noise there. So you had to integrate that with other components and package it, and lots of variables that had to be collaborated on in order to bring out a finished product. So it was really an entrepreneurial team of people that he worked with. How do you do the data communications? How do you connect it to the power source, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he developed the piece of the puzzle that was missing, but he also was part of a team that developed the product as a whole. But he does have the nickname the Podfather. He got the glory because it was the bottleneck of all the development work. They couldn't get past that problem, so it was going to be a dead project if they couldn't figure it out, and he was able to do that. But that's part of a team, and if you're in software, if you're developing a new game, you're going to work on a team, and so that's really an entrepreneurial team is one way of looking at it. Entrepreneurs. What's an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur who's working inside a corporate environment. You say, well, how can that be? Well, again, Ruby Rubenstein. That wasn't all Apple did. Apple had a whole bunch of other products in the mix, and this was, Steve Jobs' vision to have a portable electronic device that you could easily carry around. And Ruby Rubenstein's technical work brought it all together. So that's kind of entrepreneurs, people within Apple. And they had lots of other creative people and other creative projects. This one happened to be the most successful. So entrepreneurial teams, again, groups of people working together, probably software development for games and things like that would probably have been a better example to lead with. But entrepreneurs are people within your company doing something creative. I'm going to give you another example. I work for a company called BMC Software. And John Moores is the person who founded BMC. He took his BMC money and bought the San Diego Padres. That's what rich software people do, But he was a programmer for Shell Oil. And they all used IBM 3270 emulation terminals. Okay, and you may say, well, what's that? Well, they really don't exist anymore. But it was a huge business, back when IBM mainframes kind of ruled the roost in the corporate world, especially for large corporations like Shell Oil. And a 3270 was a dumb terminal. What I mean by that is it didn't have any intelligence as part of it. It had to get everything from the mainframe. In other words, to do anything with a 3270 terminal except just turn it on and look at it light up, you had to plug it into a mainframe. And then the mainframe would send information to it, or you could type in commands to get Bill Gallagher's data, and it would go off and get Bill Gallagher's data and bring that back. But a PC does that now, like the one I have on my desk, and you probably have at home. But that wasn't part and parcel to how companies operated many, many years ago. They had these dumb terminals, didn't have any intelligence built into them. They had to go send out a request to the mainframe, and the mainframe delivered the information back to the terminal. So there's thousands upon thousands of these out in the corporate world, and Moores wrote a program to optimize them, to minimize the power requirements, the data communication costs, to speed them up, and they sold like wildfire because everybody had a 3270 terminal and everybody wanted it to run cheaper and faster. and deliver more data. And he wrote a program that could do that. And so he took that, and even though he was still working for Shell Oil, he sort of did this project on his own. Good example of an entrepreneur within the company. Now, Shell Oil bought the optimizers, and he used the money to found BMC Corporation. He also had a brilliant idea from the standpoint of logistical operations. And I've been to the BMC headquarters plenty. It's very Texan. What I mean by that is everything is big. The lobby is massive. The parking garage, you could practically park your car sideways because everybody had these big pickup trucks and Hummers and everything like that. Texan. I'll leave it at that. But the other thing he did, which honestly I thought was a masterstroke, was he went out and hired some of the best chefs in Houston. And Houston's a good food town for any of you who've been there. They have a lot of really, really good restaurants. And he went out and got some of the best and paid them nice, big six-figure salaries. And again, this was back 20 years ago. And they had gourmet everything. And so you'd say, well, why spend so much money in your cafeteria? You know, isn't that kind of wasting a bunch of money? No, his thought process was perfect and spot on. His thought process was, if I have the best food in town and I have it really cheap, who's going to get in their car and leave and go off and drive 2 miles away to have lunch at XYZ Cafe or something like that? And it's true. I mean, productivity went through the roof because so few people left the building at lunchtime. You think about it, I mean, it's easy for somebody who leaves the building at lunchtime to get distracted and, let me pull over let me fill my gas tank, let me buy something at the drugstore, let me run into the supermarket real quick, so on and so on and so on. And it didn't happen at BMC. People stayed. People were like, we have the best food in town here for like pennies on the dollar. Why would I go out and have lunch somewhere else? And so they didn't. And so instead of that 1 hour lunch break sort of stretching into an hour and 15-minute lunch break, that 1 hour lunch break was really more of a 45-minute lunch break because people would eat, they'd be full, they'd happily go back off to their desks. And it was really the best food in town. And BMC charged employees next to nothing. I mean, get like a tray full of food and it would be like $4.37 or something like that. So brilliant idea. Keep them there and keep them happy with the food, and they won't leave, and you'll get better productivity out of them. And that actually proved to be the case. Another example of entrepreneurs. I was reading the story about the guy who invented 5-hour energy. Talk about something that's very useful. In this week, by the way, after getting stuck in traffic multiple times, if any of you out there invent 5-hour tolerance, your instructor wants a piece of the action. You be sure to get back to me and let me know. I'm counting on that. So next thing they move on to, and we'll talk a little bit about it, talk about two more things, and then we'll kind of cut this section off. One is micropreneurs. Who wants to? Everybody wants to be big. What's with this micropreneur thing? Well, micropreneur is effectively people have been put in the position of being micropreneurs without even knowing it. Meaning, thanks to COVID, offices are closed, and the book talks about micropreneurs in the context of home-based workers, which pretty much everybody is these days. It might be slowly changing back to the way it used to be. But again, from a personal standpoint, I sure hope I'm teaching in person next semester. That's, I just more comfortable, it's doing it that way. But we make, as I said, we do the best with what we have. So this is the situation. But basically, COVID's turned everybody into micropreneurs, which is doing things and being creative and doing your job efficiently from being based at home, which companies have had to put their workers in a position of doing. Because the company is saying, okay, you need to work from home. We can't get together in the office complex anymore. But we're still expecting you to deliver the projects. We're still expecting you to deliver the reports, the plans, everything that you normally would if we were all together in an office. But now you're doing it from home. So you need to be a little more creative in how you go about doing things. And that's micropreneurship. Okay, so people have been unknowingly put in the position of micropreneurship. I kind of feel badly for people who are in commercial real estate because honestly, once companies realize what, I've said this before, once companies realize what they can do without, they will. I mean, so some of this commercial real estate will start to come back. Commercial, again, being business real estate, company real estate. Residential real estate is families and individuals. So you see, when you talk about real estate, you talk about two categories of it. Commercial being business, residential being families. So residential is, by the way, is booming because people are working from home and people want a bigger home, a nicer home, etc. So the residential real estate market is quite good. The commercial real estate market is horrific. So the other is online businesses. We're seeing a lot more of those these days. Again, precipitated by having to work from home. And the easiest way to establish market presence and visibility is to do it through the web. Utilize the power. Harness the power of the internet. I haven't seen it so much here, but in Los Angeles, it's all about image, right? I can't tell you how many companies put forth an image. You go to their homepage and it would be a massive, 50-story building, shiny glass and steel, and it would be like, here at XYZ Corporation, a worldwide growing concern. And then you get to the fine print. Like I said, sorry. I'm sorry. I always tell myself, turn the phone off before your class. Did I forget today? Yes, I did. Okay, we're done. Sorry. Yeah. So these companies in LA would put up this huge image, about we're this big, massive corporation. But in fact, there's nothing behind it. It's just two guys working in a small office, maybe on the second floor, or maybe not even in that building, working in their own basement. Just a couple of desk droids, banging on a computer keyboard, nobody out working deals in the field, that type of thing. But the web lets you get away with that, right? Nobody's going to come to meet you face to face, so you can certainly present an image on the internet. Needless to say, if you present too big or too bright of an image and somebody finds out that you're not how you posture yourself to be, then your trust is lost and you'll never probably do any business with that entity again. So it's let your conscience be your guide, and remember the fact that do the right thing, okay, as always. That's where, by the way, if you're researching companies to invest in, look at the 10K. We talked about the annual report, more like an advertising brochure. The 10K, they're legally required to be honest. And so if it is two guys operating out of a storefront in Pacoima, California, they need to say we are two guys operating out of a storefront, and our likelihood of business continuing is contingent upon the following factors. And if they don't come into play like we think they will, then we're probably going to go out of business. Especially if you're selling stock you have to have a 10K, and you have to honestly state the business. If you mislead investors, it's okay to be a little off, but it's no bueno to be wrong, okay, or to be misleading, and that's when the SEC is on you like a possum on a wet bag of groceries. So I think that's pretty much I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and we're at 15 minutes, so that's good. So clearly Wednesday is going to be the second half of the chapter, and then we'll move on. The routine is the same. The quiz unlocks on Wednesdays, do the following Wednesday, and then off we go to chapter 7, and then off you go to spring break. But once again, I can't say how pleased I am how the class as a whole did on the midterm. And please stay vigilant. Please keep up the pace. We're getting close. I mean, 3 weeks break, a few more weeks. 2 weeks break, 3 weeks final, and everybody's out. So let's finish strong and end on a great note. See you on Zoom. Thanks.